Tom Sandoval and Ariana didn't buy a home. They bought a prop. A six-figure illusion built on refinance and delusion. The greatest irony of Vanderpump Rules has never been its self-proclaimed reality. It's that the cast, while constantly accusing each other of being fake, couldn't act their way through a perfume commercial. And yet, there they are. Perpetually performing, forever auditioning for emotional depth they don't actually possess. Exhibit A. Kristen Dute's Oscar-worthy failure of a kitchen scene. When Kristen stammers, "But I didn't go around and fuck someone behind your back," it's less a defense and more a tragicomic demonstration of her inability to sell sincerity. The tone, the cadence, the desperate half-sob. It's like watching a community theater understudy realize mid-line that the lead role isn't coming back. It's not emotion, it's rehearsal. Her face tightens, as if waiting for applause that never comes. The only thing missing is a dramatic lighting cue and a cutaway to Tom Sandoval, pretending to care while mentally calculating his next PR stunt. Kristen's defense of her fidelity feels so staged, it makes her acting reel look like a documentary. Viewers don't even need to be body language experts to see the lie struggle to climb out of her throat. She performs betrayal like it's a monologue, forgetting that her partner, a man who's made infidelity an art form, has already weaponized her behavior into his next emotional narrative. Tom Sandoval isn't a victim here. He's a director mid-production, watching his star implode while planning the next act with Ariana. The farce deepens when you realize how meticulously this show confuses emotional honesty with good television. Kristen's implosion isn't tragic. It's theatrical currency. Even her attempts at righteous anger, "I'm not lying to you, Toom," Gichi, land with all the authenticity of a soap opera villainess caught in the wrong decade. It's painful not because it's raw, but because it's rehearsed. The surrounding chorus only enhances the absurdity. Stassi, ever the self-appointed lie detector of West Hollywood, manages to turn Kristen's humiliation into a morality play, offering polygraph tests as if she's running a forensics lab instead of a brunch crew. The lie detector line, delivered through clenched teeth and a smirk, encapsulates Vanderpump Rules' ethos perfectly. Truth doesn't matter, only the performance of seeking it does. Even Jax Taylor's infamous jail weekend adds to the operetta of dishonesty. The coincidence of Kristen's trip home to Michigan, aligning with Jax's supposed incarceration, reads less like random timing and more like a poorly plotted B storyline. His explanation, that he didn't know anyone's number to call from jail, feels about as believable as his later career as a self-help podcaster. The man's lies have layers, each one flimsier than the last. And through all this chaos, Sandoval stands smugly center stage, performing his favorite role, misunderstood genius. His reactions are measured, his tone condescendingly calm, the kind of faux enlightened detachment usually found in a college freshman who's just discovered Nietzsche. He acts as though Kristen's melodrama proves his superiority, a martyr of feminine hysteria rather than its architect. The brilliance, accidental or not, of Vanderpump Rules lies in its inability to recognize that its most real moments are the least convincing. Every confrontation feels rehearsed, every apology scripted, every outburst suspiciously well-timed. This is not authenticity. It's the pathology of people who've spent too long mistaking attention for validation. Kristen's supposed guilt and Sandoval's smug composure create a dynamic so toxic, it's practically radioactive. They are twin poles of self-delusion, one crying for sympathy, the other demanding applause. The result is less a relationship and more a dramatized ego duel, with both contestants convinced they're the victim. When Sandoval accuses Kristen of betrayal, what he's really condemning is her amateurishness. Her crime isn't sleeping with Jax. It's doing it without cinematic flair. It's easy to forget, amid the theatrics, that Sandoval himself was no innocent monk of monogamy. His own extracurricular activities could fill a spin-off. But moral consistency was never the point. It was about narrative dominance. He needed Kristen's implosion to legitimize his next coupling. The conveniently timed union with Ariana, the intellectual upgrade he'd been grooming since season 2. The relationship wasn't born out of love, but out of narrative evolution. She was the next act. What's fascinating about this phase of the show isn't the scandal itself, but how each player believes they're the most authentic person in the room. Kristen thinks tears will redeem her. Sandoval thinks logic will exonerate him. Both are wrong. The tragedy of Vanderpump Rules is that authenticity is never rewarded. It's cannibalized. Genuine emotion is merely raw material for the next storyline. Even minor details, like Jax's fake jail stint or the "I'll take a lie detector" theatrics, reinforce the theme. Deception isn't the problem, it's the product. The show thrives on contradiction. Everyone condemns cheating while participating in it. Everyone preaches loyalty while scheduling their next betrayal. It's not hypocrisy, it's branding. By the time Ariana enters the picture, Sandoval has perfected his performance. He markets himself as the brooding creative, the man who throws elaborate birthday parties and cries about integrity while charging everything to a maxed-out credit card. Ariana, for her part, mistakes self-importance for depth. Together, they form a self-congratulatory ecosystem, the pseudo-intellectual and the performative feminist, bound by a shared delusion of moral superiority. The early seasons of Vanderpump Rules capture this delusion perfectly. Every argument staged like a student film about human frailty, every tear carefully positioned to glisten under Bravo lighting. It's not that these people can't tell the truth, it's that truth holds no market value in their world. Reality TV doesn't reward honesty, it monetizes dysfunction. And so, Kristen's failed acting in the kitchen isn't a fluke. It's the show distilled to its essence, the desperate, self-conscious performance of people who can't stop performing even when the cameras aren't rolling. Her bad acting isn't the exception, it's the rule. Sandoval's smug detachment isn't wisdom, it's a brand strategy. Together, they represent the moral gravity of a black hole, each pulling attention inward until nothing real can escape. Their relationship serves as the template for the show's future implosions, emotionally codependent chaos masquerading as passion. Every couple that follows will replay this dynamic, the self-deluded narcissist and the self-destructive apologist, locked in an endless waltz of televised dysfunction. It's almost poetic that Vanderpump Rules markets itself as a window into young Hollywood ambition. In truth, it's a masterclass in arrested development. These are not people growing, they're looping, forever replaying their worst instincts for diminishing applause. Kristen's tears, Sandoval's preening, Jax's pathological lying, all part of a ritual that's less about reality and more about relevance. The scene in that kitchen, the one so clumsily acted it could have been a parody, is more revealing than any confessional interview. It shows what Vanderpump Rules truly is, a performance of emotional authenticity by people who have none left to give. Every tear, every apology, every declaration of truth is just another script read badly by actors who don't know they're acting. If there's one consistent theme across the show's chaotic early years, it's that none of them are actually trying to find love, or growth, or meaning. They're all just auditioning for the next season, the next partner, the next fleeting moment of moral superiority. And like all bad actors, they never realize the audience has long stopped believing them. The most enduring mystery of Vanderpump Rules isn't who slept with whom, it's how any of them can afford to live. Watching Tom Sandoval discuss refinancing his home while dressed like a vaudeville extra is the closest reality television has ever come to performance art. The man speaks about interest rates with the same conviction he reserves for his visionary cocktail concepts, and somehow both carry the same result: spectacular financial ruin. Sandoval's relationship with money is less about fiscal responsibility and more about self-mythology. He doesn't spend to live, he spends to narrate. Every purchase is a prop, every expense a storyline. He'll drop $20,000 on a motorcycle that doesn't start, then brag about creative investments, as if financial irresponsibility were a personality trait. It's as if he believes that by burning through cash fast enough, he can outpace the consequences. This is a man who refinanced a house he barely lived in so he could open a bar named after himself twice. It would be tragic if it weren't so predictably stupid. Even the furniture, or rather, the conspicuous lack of it, became part of the mythos. The empty home, the chic minimalism of dysfunction, all to feed a narrative of visionary struggle. It's not poverty, it's aesthetic restraint. But Sandoval isn't alone in his delusion. The Vanderpump ecosystem is built on fiscal absurdity. Sheena publicly confessed to having $2,000 in her bank account during COVID, after nearly a decade of being on television. Katie, meanwhile, emerged as the accidental financial adult of the group, simply because she didn't blow her savings on glitter-infused birthday parties or monogrammed barware. When Katie Maloney is the model of prudence, civilization is clearly in decline. The show thrives on this illusion of wealth, the Bravo economy, where fame is mistaken for solvency. The cast members live as if the cameras will always be there, as though the champagne fountains will refill themselves. Lifestyle creep isn't a risk, it's a requirement. The aesthetic of success must be maintained at all costs, even if those costs are charged to an overextended credit line. Sandoval's spending habits are so performative, they border on parody. Thousands blown on costumes, props, and musical projects that go nowhere. A symphony of wasted ambition conducted by a man who mistakes excess for artistry. His life is a continuous reel of unfulfilled side quests, the motorcycle that sputters out, the restaurant that bleeds cash, the endless creative projects that exist only as evidence of his own delusion. What's most astonishing isn't that Sandoval is reckless, it's that he somehow manages to find partners who enable him. Ariana, his long-suffering co-conspirator, may have been the only person capable of keeping up with his brand of financial nihilism. The pair bought a house together, a decision as wise as pouring gasoline on a candlelit dinner, and promptly turned it into a cautionary tale. Within months, Ariana had tax liens on the property, and Sandoval had refinanced it into oblivion. It's almost romantic in its dysfunction. Two people so desperate to appear successful that they accidentally became each other's creditors. They weren't partners, they were mutual liabilities with matching throw pillows. And yet, for all their blunders, Sandoval's behavior was never unique. Jax Taylor, the group's resident sociopath, famously neglected to pay his taxes for years, presumably because civic responsibility doesn't look good on Instagram. Beau, Stassi's better-dressed rebound from chaos, filed for bankruptcy twice before he could afford to propose. Sheena needed financial help from her castmates. Even Lala, self-proclaimed boss woman, tied her identity to the checkbook of a man who couldn't go a week without a cocaine scandal. The cast's approach to money reveals the real psychology of Vanderpump Rules. They confuse visibility with stability. As long as people are watching, the bills will somehow pay themselves. It's the spiritual successor to the Hollywood dream. Not to make it, but to look like you already have. Sandoval, in his own mind, is a creative mogul. He tells himself that extravagant parties and costume budgets are investments in the brand. The problem, of course, is that the brand is him, and he depreciates faster than his motorcycle. The parties are lavish, the outfits theatrical, but none of it translates into growth or legacy. It's just sound and glitter signifying nothing. The irony is that his few smart decisions are accidental. Living in a rent-controlled apartment? Financially sound. But instead of saving money, he used the spare cash to fund his narcissism. He always had a roommate, Jax, Schwartz, Kristen, Ariana, now Victoria, ensuring someone else subsidized his delusions. For a man obsessed with control, he's remarkably dependent on others' wallets. His defenders claim that Lisa Vanderpump must have seen something stable in him to involve him in Tom Tom. More likely, she saw a willing fool with a camera-ready face and just enough disposable income to fund her storyline. The business partnership wasn't a reward for prudence, it was a casting decision. And like most of Sandoval's ventures, it came wrapped in ego and poor math. Still, Sandoval's delusion has a strange kind of consistency. He views debt not as danger, but as momentum. If he keeps spending, keeps expanding, keeps performing success, maybe he'll become it. It's the Vanderpump curse. Everyone mistaking motion for progress, drama for meaning, spending for achievement. Ariana, despite her cool girl veneer, is hardly the grounded counterpoint she pretends to be. Her own finances are a mirror image of Sandoval's recklessness. Tax issues, overextended spending, a stubborn refusal to acknowledge how much she benefits from the illusion of competence. Together, they built their empire on Bravo checks and illusion. Their relationship is less a romance than a joint venture in denial. When Sandoval threw thousands into James and Raquel's engagement party, it wasn't generosity. It was pathology. He can't resist the urge to curate every moment into a spectacle. Watching him overspend on an event that would implode within months is poetic justice. It's also the perfect metaphor for his life, pouring borrowed money into doomed performances, mistaking chaos for charisma. The others are no better. Jax literally financed his lifestyle through denial. Sheena broadcast her financial hardship with the same enthusiasm she once reserved for selfies. Katie and Schwartz planned a wedding like it was a trust fund exercise in masochism. Stassi, for all her performative growth, dropped nearly $20,000 on tea towels and still claimed frugality. It's a collective pathology, a cult of self-importance funded by future debt. Even fans have started to recognize the absurdity. The debates about who's the most financially responsible on this show sound like arguing over who's the tallest toddler. When the bar is did not commit tax fraud, the field is depressingly small. Still, beneath the mockery lies something darker, a complete misunderstanding of what success even means. For these people, wealth is not measured in savings or security, but in optics. Sandoval's home wasn't a place to live. It was a set. Ariana's bank account wasn't a safety net. It was a mood board. They perform stability while their lives quietly collapse behind the curtain. Perhaps the most delusional part of it all is how they talk about their finances on camera, as though confessing debt absolves them of it. They turn their bankruptcy into relatability, their irresponsibility into creative struggle. Sandoval, in particular, speaks about money with the self-seriousness of a man explaining abstract art. His expenses are for the show. His debt is for the vision. In truth, his only consistent investment is in his own myth. The deeper tragedy, and what makes it so endlessly watchable, is that these people are not unique. They're the televised embodiment of a broader cultural sickness, the obsession with appearing successful at any cost. In a world where everyone is their own brand, financial collapse becomes just another form of content. By the time Sandoval refinances his house for a bar that no one wants to visit, the delusion is complete. The bar is his personality, his redemption arc, his monument to ego, and when it inevitably begins to fail, he'll find another creative project to bury the evidence under. Debt, to Sandoval, isn't a burden, it's a narrative device. The others will follow suit, because failure is profitable as long as it's televised. Bankruptcy can be rebranded. Tax liens become talking points. Financial ruin becomes character development. The show's true economy isn't built on money, but on humiliation. And in that market, they are all billionaires. It's fitting, then, that Sandoval's so-called success, the restaurants, the parties, the grand gestures, all serve the same purpose as Kristen's kitchen acting once did. Performance masquerading as authenticity. The audience is expected to applaud, not analyze. He's not trying to build wealth. He's trying to build myth, and myth is far cheaper than stability. As long as the cameras are rolling, none of them have to admit the truth, that the wealth, the fame, the relevance are all temporary, leased luxuries dressed up as legacies. Their empires are built on Bravo credit, and the interest rate is coming due. Every generation of Vanderpump Rules believes it has discovered its own moral compass. In reality, each new season simply unveils another narcissist who mistakes judgment for virtue. The crown for self-righteous delusion, however, belongs to Lauren from Utah, known to the world as Lala Kent, the patron saint of hypocrisy. By season 9, Lala had achieved a spiritual evolution few reality stars manage. She became the kind of person who delivers sermons about accountability while dating a man who communicates exclusively through cocaine and NDAs. Randall Emmett, the film-producing embodiment of midlife crisis, was everything she publicly claimed to despise: manipulative, vulgar, and perpetually indebted. But Lala, ever the visionary, mistook moral compromise for lifestyle branding. She wasn't selling out, she was leveling up. Her campaign against Brock Davies, Shiana's human red flag of a fiancé, was meant to be her redemption arc, a crusade for justice wrapped in contour and self-importance. Brock, the absentee father and alleged abuser, is an easy villain. But in the hands of Lala, even the moral high ground becomes a swamp. She dragged him at every gathering, every brunch, every confession booth, insisting it was out of concern. The audience, and half the cast, could see it for what it was: vengeance disguised as virtue. This was not about protecting Sheena. It was about reclaiming relevance. When Lala wasn't scolding Shiana for her choices, she was ensuring that everyone within a 5-mile radius knew she was doing it. She hijacked dinners, interrupted parties, and delivered her diatribes with the performative empathy of a televangelist mid-fundraiser. She is less a friend than a megaphone. What made it unbearable wasn't that she was wrong about Brock. She wasn't. But that she was so spectacularly insincere in being right. It's one thing to condemn a man for abandoning his children. It's another to weaponize that condemnation for screen time. Lala's sense of justice extends exactly as far as the camera lens. When the spotlight moves, so does her conscience. The hypocrisy reached its peak when Sandoval, the show's resident ego and eyeliner, called her out for her relationship with Randall. It was a rare cosmic inversion, the villain momentarily glimpsing his reflection. Lala, so accustomed to controlling the narrative, suddenly faced a truth she couldn't edit: that her stand-up man was just another predator with better lighting. She flinched, sputtered, then did what every Bravo Messiah does when cornered: doubled down on self-pity. Her downfall is particularly poetic because it exposes the show's favorite illusion: that moral superiority can be monetized. Lala's transformation from brash newcomer to sanctimonious mother figure was a branding exercise gone rancid. She preached empowerment while outsourcing it to her bank account. Every act of judgment was an advertisement for her own alleged growth. When Randall's empire of sleaze collapsed, Lala didn't confront the hypocrisy. She pivoted to victimhood. And yet, her crusade against Brock wasn't entirely misplaced. The man's resume reads like a cautionary tale carved in red flags: domestic abuse, unpaid child support, abandoned children, a visa conveniently rescued by impregnating a reality star. Brock didn't need enemies. He was self-sabotage in sneakers. But in Vanderpump logic, moral clarity is never enough. Sheena, loyal to a fault and addicted to narrative rehabilitation, clung to him anyway, desperate to prove that love could outshine a criminal record. Sheena's eternal tragedy is that she cannot distinguish between devotion and denial. Every relationship becomes a campaign for validation. She's the perennial understudy of emotional stability, forever trying to convince the audience that this time, she's the heroine. Her willingness to excuse Brock's history isn't naivety, it's brand maintenance. To admit the truth would mean admitting she's the common denominator in her own chaos. What makes Shiana and Lala such riveting foils is that they represent two sides of the same delusion. One seeks approval through submission, the other through superiority. Shiana forgives men to prove she's worthy. Lala destroys them to prove she's evolved. Both are addicted to the moral performance of womanhood, the saint and the scold, eternally locked in a Bravo-sponsored morality play. Even the audience begins to fracture under the weight of their contradictions. Half defend Lala as the truth-teller, the other half see her as a sanctimonious bully. But both sides miss the larger point. Vanderpump Rules has no moral center. Every sermon is just a plot device. Lala's indignation, Sheena's martyrdom, even Sandoval's performative guilt, all are currencies in the same economy of spectacle. By the time Season 9 drags through its endless Lala versus Brock skirmishes, The show feels like a courtroom drama where everyone forgot they're guilty. Lala berates Sheena for ignoring red flags while simultaneously ignoring the fireworks factory burning in her own home. Randall, allegedly spending his days snorting lines and hurling slurs, barely warrants a mention from her until it becomes safe to distance herself. When she finally leaves him, it isn't out of moral awakening. It's because the optics demanded it. Meanwhile, the show continues to reward this hypocrisy. Bravo, ever allergic to introspection, promotes the loudest moralizers as its stars. The worse their behavior, the more airtime they get. Lala's sanctimony, Shayna's desperation, Sandoval's narcissism, all become content. The network's ethos is simple: bad person equals good television. And so the carousel of dysfunction spins on, powered by indignation and irony. Even the supposed reformed cast members can't resist the pull of sanctification. Stassi, once the show's resident sociopath, reinvented herself as a humbled mother and author of redemption memoirs. Her apology tour after the Faith Stowers incident was less about accountability than rebranding. She wasn't sorry, she was market correcting. Yet compared to the rest of them, her contrition almost looks genuine. The show's later seasons are a gallery of self-anointed prophets. Each one delivers confessional monologues about growth, as if therapy were measured in talking points. Sandoval lectures about loyalty, Ariana about empowerment, Lala about accountability. The words have been hollowed out by overuse. They speak in hashtags, the dialect of people who've replaced self-reflection with self-promotion. Perhaps the most honest moment in the entire saga isn't a confession or a confrontation, but a rewatch. Viewers revisiting the early seasons often realize how drastically their sympathies shift. Characters once perceived as victims reveal themselves as manipulators. Villains suddenly seem refreshingly blunt. Kristen, once derided as unhinged, now reads as the only person too bad at lying to sustain the illusion. Katie, long dismissed as passive, emerges as the only one who eventually develops a moral compass, not shaped by public relations. The great paradox of Vanderpump Rules is that everyone ends up becoming the person they once despised. Stassi, who tormented Shiana for being needy, built a career on her own need for adoration. Lala, who mocked hypocrisy, became its high priestess. Sandoval, who once scolded Jax for infidelity, mastered the art of betrayal so completely it birthed a national scandal. The circle is unbroken, the irony immaculate. By the end of this saga, what remains isn't a group of friends, but a collection of personal brands orbiting each other for residual fame. They aren't living, they're maintaining franchises. Every apology, every outrage, every emotional breakdown is calibrated for visibility. The humanity has been edited out, leaving only character arcs that never resolve. And yet, there's an undeniable brilliance in the chaos. The show functions as an accidental satire of modern morality, a world where virtue is performative, outrage is monetized, and redemption is a publicity stunt. Lala isn't just a hypocrite. She's a product of her environment. Shiana isn't just naive. She's the inevitable result of a culture that rewards loyalty to spectacle over loyalty to truth. In the final analysis, Vanderpump Rules doesn't chronicle the rise and fall of friendships or romances. It documents the corrosion of authenticity under the fluorescent glare of fame. Every cast member is a mirror reflecting the same disease, the belief that being seen is the same as being good. The Sandoval fallout only confirmed what years of melodrama had hinted at, that moral collapse isn't a deviation from the show's DNA. It is the DNA. Sandoval's affair with Raquel wasn't shocking because it happened. It was shocking because anyone still expected better. It was the logical conclusion of a culture that treats betrayal as both sin and strategy. And so, as the empire crumbles and spin-offs bloom like weeds, we are left with a cast of self-righteous messiahs preaching to an audience that knows the sermon is fake, but tunes in anyway. Lala will continue to moralize, Sheena will continue to rationalize, and Sandoval will continue to monologue in eyeliner about artistry. They will each insist they've changed, grown, evolved, when in truth, They've simply adapted. Because in the world of Vanderpump Rules, redemption isn't earned. It's renewed, season after season, contract by contract, as long as the cameras keep rolling and the audience keeps forgiving. The show's final lesson, accidental but profound, is that fame will always outbid morality. In that sense, they are all perfectly cast.